of the sphenoid, right? So if I hold Mr. Sphenoid, right, me looking out at you like a crazy bat, here's the lesser wings on top. Here's the lesser wings right here. Okay? So then our first, after cribiform, our first foramen that we have, right underneath of the lesser wing, is your optic canal. Right here. Your optic canal. Optic. Okay. And if we look into his eyes, we can see the optic canal also. And it's kind of a perfect hole inside of the eye. And then right below it is the superior orbital fissure. Running this way. Your superior orbital fissure. Good. If you flip it this way, it's right underneath of the wings, the lesser wing. Cool. Good. So, cribiform plate, optic canal, superior orbital fissure. The next one, Kathleen calls this the rose. The first one after superior orbital fissure is rotundum. It's the R of rose, rotundum. And then right below it is ovale, which is kind of oval shaped. Ovale. And then the little tiny one right next to it is spinosum. That's spinosum. Good? Okay. Skip that one. Okay. What's this thick portion right here? What do you think it is? It's the really thick, bulky portion. It's on the temporal. No, it's the really hard, thick part. No.
Petrous?
It's the petrous portion. This big, meaty looking part is your petrous portion of your temporal. Yeah, okay, alright. So, right, what does the petrous portion protect?
Inner ear?
Your inner ear, right? So if our petrous portion protects our inner ear, then our internal auditory meatus is found on the petrous portion because it needs to go toward those inner ear bones, right? That is protecting. See? Okay. Then after that one, right next to it, as you can see, we're kind of moving from the front of the skull toward the foramen magnum. So if we go from internal auditory meatus, the next one we reach is your jugular. Got jugular. And we say if we flip it over, flip the skull over, it kind of looks like a jelly bean, but not really. So it's all of this right here. There's like a whole portion that's kind of jelly bean shaped. Jugular jelly bean. See, it's this portion right here. Kind of is jelly bean shaped if you have an imagination. Jugular. Okay. And then the last hole right before you exit, right before you get flushed down the toilet, is the go. I can't get it. Will teach you a lesson. There we go. I got it. Okay. The last one is the hypoglossal canal. It's running right before you flush. That's a little old lady. Hypoglossal canal. Okay. Remember from midterm 1, what articulates right here? Huh?
Atlas.
No, the atlas, right? The atlas articulates here. These are called your occipital condyles. The atlas sits right there. Your hypoglossal canal runs right underneath the occipital condyles. So, yeah, good. Okay. All right, and then the big hole is the Foramen Magnum. Okay. What passes through the Foramen Magnum? The spinal cord. Spinal cord. If you say food, shame on you. Kathleen says if you say food, then she doesn't have to grade the rest of your exam. Or she says if you say food, of course she doesn't have to grade the rest of your exam because it's probably blank. Because you're stupid. So do not put food, put spinal column because it exits your brain. Your food goes this way from your mouth. Okay. Cool. Alright, let's see. I think one last, got a couple of other ones. All of those were nerves that cranial nerves, or not nerves, were holes that cranial nerves actually go through. There are a couple other of foramina that don't have cranial nerves through, but they're still important and you should know them, or important-ish, okay? Well, this guy's broken, but what's this portion right here of the sphenoid? Right here? This is your sella turcica. Sella turcica. We could see it on this guy too. It's just broken off. It's the sella turcica. My finger sits in it. Okay. What sits in your sella turcica? No, not your brain. Your pituitary. Your pituitary sits in the sella turcica. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely learn that. Okay? If we treat the sella turcica like a saddle, and we sit on it, our legs go through foramen magnum. So here's him sitting, and then I'll pull the other one out. Okay. It's sitting in foramen magnum. Stick your legs because they're crazy. They're all gonna fail, so. Okay. Alright, so that's one. And then the other one you need to know is the carotid canal. Okay, right next to your jugular vein, which also runs through the jugular foramen, and your carotid artery and the vagus nerve are all found in this structure called the carotid sheath. And they all kind of come out of different holes from your skull, but then they flow together inside of this sheath down to your body, okay? So if we've got the jugular foramen here, right next to it, going into the brain at a 45-ish degree angle, is the carotid canal. See, it's right here. See it? That's your carotid canal. It goes right in here. It's your carotid canal. And your carotid artery goes through it. I think that's the only other one. And that one, you can really only find it if you're looking at the inferior view of the skull. Everything else you can see looking inside of it. And then here's a trick. If they sit the skull this way and have a pipe cleaner going through a hole, and you say, I have no idea what hole that is, if you learn it one direction, then you know it both directions because the pipe cleaner goes all the way through it. So if they have a skull sitting like this and you say, I have no idea what that hole is, pick up the skull and flip it over and say, oh look, it's right next to rotundum and next to spinosum. This must be ovale. It's oval shaped. Okay? So don't be afraid to pick up the skull and look at it. You have that ability. Okay? And so that means you really only have to memorize the holes one direction because you can flip it over to the direction you know, and then you know. The only one you need to know this way is the carotid. Okay? Okay, so we've got, what was the big meaty part of your, the big bulky part that's right behind your ear? No. petrous portion is inside. This little bit this is your mastoid process. Right behind your ear is your mastoid process. Then the little pointy bit that actually is much longer, but on these skulls it's all broken off. This pointy bit is your styloid process. Your styloid process. It's just a nice little bit that sticks out, like on your ulna has one too, like a little tiny bit. Right between the mastoid and the styloid process is a little foramen called the Stylo Mastoid Foramen, named after the styloid and the mastoid. We've got Stylo Mastoid Foramen. And then right here, if this on the inside is your internal auditory meatus, what do you think this is? Your external auditory meatus. This hole is your external auditory meatus. That's how sound gets in. Okay. Few last little holes. Remember, I held up, you got the 3 fingers, you got 3 branches of the trigeminal nerve, right? You put them on your face, right? You've got where they go, okay? Your ophthalmic, hold on, shoot, you got it. Ophthalmic comes out, okay. Your ophthalmic comes out of the skull through the superior orbital fissure, right? And then eventually it crawls along the top of your eye orbit. And here, this one doesn't have a foramen because not all of them do. But you've got a little foramen right above your eye orbit, or a little notch right above your eye orbit, called the supraorbital foramen. Or if it's not a foramen, it's the supraorbital notch. So you've got ophthalmic, the top part of the trigeminal coming out of your head, ultimately through your supraorbital foramen. I blanked on the name for a second. Okay. Then the next branch of it goes through rotundum. Ophthalmic, it's maxillary. Okay, maxillary will go through the rotundum. Right. What's this one? No. It's rose. Right. So this is ovale. What's this one? It's a jelly bean. Wait, no. Oh, jelly beans are right here. This is the serum. What's this hole here? Go. Do it. It's spinosum. Like test brain fry. It's like the test killed your brain. Okay. Anyway. Oh shoot, what was I doing? Oh, okay, so the maxillary goes through rotundum, and then eventually it comes out of this guy. Oh, they're right here. Okay, comes out of your maxillary foramen. You've got a foramen right here. There it is. Got a foramen right here that it comes out of. And you can see if we stick through the eye, eventually you can get it to rotundum, but you've got maxillary foramen inside of your maxilla that your maxillary branch of the trigeminal comes out of. You can see in the eye orbit how it flows along to the eye orbit. Because rotundum, you stick this through rotundum, you can get it all the way through. It's craziness. It doesn't want to go. Doesn't matter. This is maxillary foramen. Okay. Then the last branch goes through ovale. Okay. This is the mandibular. It'll go through ovale into the base of the skull, and then it goes through a little foramen on the inside, on the ascending ramus of your mandible. This one right here. This is your mandibular your mandibular foramen. See your mandibular foramen. And there's another one on this side. Here. That's right there. Okay. So this is the mandibular branch of the trigeminal. It goes through ovale, through mandibular foramen, and then ultimately it comes out through your mental foramen on your chin. And you remember mental foramen because you go, Supraorbital Foramen on your mandible. I think that completes this portion. One last thing. One last thing. The sphenoid. Okay. You can see this is lesser wing, these are greater wings of the sphenoid. If we hold the skull like this, the lesser wing of the greater wing of the sphenoid, you can see it right here. The sphenoid's sticking out. If you look at the color-coded ones, you can see it really good. The sphenoid, here's greater wing, here's greater wing right here. Okay. If you look at the colored one, it's really obvious. Okay. And then, last but not least, if we turn it around, right, this is facing toward you, like me looking out. If we turn it around, we've got these plates sticking down. These are your pterygoid plates. We have a lateral and a medial pterygoid plate, and a medial and a lateral pterygoid plate. So we've got lateral and medial pterygoid plate, medial and lateral pterygoid plate. Cool? Okay. The majority of the foramina that you're looking at either are on the sphenoid or are on the temporal bones. The majority of everything goes through those. Okay? So make sure you look at those disarticulated and you try to figure out what hole you're looking at based on them not being together. Let's see. Other stuff you need to learn. You guys also need to learn the sutures on the head, but those are pretty self-explanatory. I think you can find them. Especially if you look at a colored skull, you'll see them, like, they're named. It's like, the temporo-occipital, whatever. They're named what they are. Or their coronal suture.